Hello everybody, this is Luke with Journey to Emotional Health. I'm a clinical counselor and today I would like to talk to you about attachment. Now attachment is a very broad, big topic, so today is just going to be a little bit of an introduction. So to begin with, I would just like to explain to you a little bit about what healthy attachment looks like and how it is created. So ideally, when a baby is born, they're going to attach to their primary caregiver, whether that's their mom or their dad. And how the healthy attachment works is the primary caregiver brings emotional regulation. And that happens when a baby, for example, they're laying in their crib, or they're laying on the floor getting some tummy time, or just laying on the floor playing with toys. And after a while, the baby gets bored, and they become what's called having a flat affect. So emotional regulation is a range from 1 to 10. And hypo is kind of between a 1 to 4 area, 1 to 3 area. And it's kind of numb, it's bored, it's not really feeling a lot of emotion, not feeling a whole lot of anything. And when a baby feels that, a mom or a dad will come and look down at them and smile. They give them a big smile, and this brings a stimulation, an emotional stimulation to them, and it regulates them and brings them back up to that like 5, 6 area. And this makes neuro networking within the child's brain that says, when I'm bored, somebody will come to me and regulate me. There's hope when I'm having these feelings. But then there's these other times where we're hyper-regulated, and or hyper-aroused, and that's when we're, like a baby is crying, they're in their crib crying, or they're hungry, or they're in a dirty diaper and they're crying, they're uncomfortable. And when the primary caregiver hears these cries, they come to the baby and they meet the need. They change the diaper, they feed the baby, or they just pick up the baby and just cuddle them and comfort them and make the eye contact. And when that happens, the baby's brain makes more neural networks and says, when I'm hyper-aroused, somebody's going to come and regulate me. And it's going to bring this co-regulation. And ideally, as this happens over time, primarily within the first 2 years of the parent co-regulating the child will grow this ability through the neural networking in the brain that they'll be able to start self-regulating. So as they go to school, as they're with friends, as they're on play dates, and something happens, and they're hyper-regulated or hyper-aroused, their brain says, it's okay. Your parents will be here and they will regulate you. Or if they're hyper-aroused, and that could be crying, but that also could be anxious or nervous or tension, their brain's going to tell their body, it's okay. Your parents will be here and they can regulate you. Now this is ideal, but unfortunately this is not how it always works. So when that happens, it's called a healthy attachment or a secure attachment. When this doesn't happen, it can be it creates an anxious attachment or a avoidant attachment. So we go back to those same babies. They're laying on the floor, hypo-aroused, and say they're in the floor on the bed, hyper-aroused, and the caregiver comes to them and sees that they're numb, but the parent isn't able to regulate themselves. So maybe they're stressed, or maybe they have too much on their mind, and they just walk past the baby and don't attune to where the baby is and what they're feeling. And the baby sits there longer than it should. And then those neural networkings aren't created. So when they're not created, the brain starts saying, people won't come and help you. They won't come and regulate you. And if you're hyper-aroused, the same thing. maybe the parent isn't regulated and isn't able to jump into the crying, screaming baby, and they're just too overwhelmed, so they want the baby to regulate it themselves. So again, the brain says, no one's coming. So when there's an anxious attachment, your brain is saying, I need to do something to make my parents notice me and care that my needs are important. So the anxious is, I don't know if they're going to come. I don't know if they're going to meet my needs. So I have to be good enough or be regulated enough so that my parent will interact with me. And so it's always people pleasing. It might look like a lot of people pleasing, and that would be within the parents' relationship with their parents. Or it's an avoidant attachment, and that is going to more look like relationship's not safe. So why should I risk putting myself out there and engaging in relationship when it's just going to be hurtful anyways? So they avoid the relationship or tell themselves why relationship isn't worth engaging in. And so that's going to affect you all along your life. It's going to, like I said, an anxious attached person might be more of a people pleaser. So they're going to be always kind of clingy and needing to be affirmed in that validation in relationships. The avoidant attachment is going to not look for a deep connection. They're going to kind of avoid the deep connection because if I engage in a deep connection, that's just going to open myself to more hurt because my brain's telling me rejection is going to come. So that is just a quick gloss over healthy and secure attachment and insecure attachment, which could be either avoidant or anxious. And so we'll go more into these in a little bit more depth individually in later videos, and how they might play out more, so that you can kind of, I encourage you to look at your relationships and what attachment do you have? Is it a secure attachment, or is it an anxious or avoidant? There's even another one that's anxious avoidant, which is a combination of both. And in your close relationships, how do you interact? And a couple of resources I just encourage you to look at for more self-education. There's a book called Attached. It's a very good book. It's not from a Christian perspective, but a very good scientific explanation of attachment. And then there's two other resources that are from a Christian perspective. One of them is a book called Try Softer. She's a licensed clinical therapist who's a Christian. It's a great book that talks about healthy attachment and healing from unhealthy attachment. And then a podcast called The Place We Find Ourselves by Adam Young. All three of those are great resources to look at. On the podcast, I would encourage you to look at 1, 2, 5, and 7 for attachment. That gives you a very quick foundation of what healthy and unhealthy attachment looks like. So thank you for joining me in this video, and look forward to talking more in future videos. Bye.